All right, so during this discussion, you guys are free to laugh. Some of you might get emotional. I get it. It's one of those discussions. No, I'm just kidding. That's for the next couple of weeks. But tonight, I wanted to start off the Jesus series kind of lighthearted. And so yeah, that's my heart behind tonight is I want us to get to know Jesus more, similar to like what that song was talking about, how we want to know him more. And I believe that how you get to know people more, and just like any good friend, right? If you meet them and you're in that preteen stage of life, you ask them, hey, where'd you grow up? Or what are some of your hobbies? Or what are some things that you like to do? Or, right, to get to know them. And I think sometimes we just skim past some of the stuff of Jesus and just think, oh, he was healing sinners and lepers and calling out stuff. And we forget, like, Jesus was a kid, too. Right? We talk about his birth at Christmas, right? Everybody's like, oh yeah, Noel, and singing all these Christmas songs, and born in a manger, and sometimes we even forget, like, yeah, a manger. Have any of you guys been to a barn? Right? Most of you should raise your hand, because you've been out to the farm, right, Sandy? That's clean. That's really clean compared to what a normal barn is, right? And especially like an out barn kind of thing, like, They're not nice places. You're not thinking, it'd be nice to be born there, right? That's a good place to have a baby. No, that's not, right? But a lot of attention gets put there. We're not going to talk about that today. So you're like, oh, okay, Christmas come early. No. We're going to be talking about the 12-year-old Jesus. You guys familiar with this story? It's real short, real brief. But first off, how many young ladies do we have here in between the ages of 14 to 18? If you are between the ages of 14 to 18, will you come on up and stand right here? Oh, actually, sorry, stand over there by Danny, out of the frame. Okay? Some of you are like, what is going on here? Okay? Yeah, there you go. Okay. So many scholars believe and think, and I would tend to agree with them, that Mary was around this age. Sorry, I can't see all of you. Lily, can you come up a little bit more? There we go. Okay, I want to be able to see all of you. Perfect. Okay, so Mary, mother of Jesus, was about this age when Jesus was born. Right? So you can look, you guys know all these ladies, right? We've got Haley Jane. Haley Jane, can you raise your hand? Hey! Right? Then we got Lily. Hey! Alicia. Shh. There she is. Chloe. Sequoia. And Brindley. Right? So question for you ladies. Do you understand life in general?
No, sure.
Yeah, sure.
No.
General idea, just kind of. But you trust God, right? Okay. What matters most in your life right now?
Following God's plan.
Following God's plan.
God and my family.
Okay. Chloe. Next. No. Okay. Alicia.
The same as Sequoia, God and my family.
Cool.
And friends.
Lily? Trusting in God. Haley Jane?
Probably friends and family and having trust and not being that big.
Cool. Do you want to answer now, Chloe?
Building my relationship with God further.
Cool. So you know what the cool thing is about all those answers? Every single one of those, I would bet my life on. That's how Mary felt. Exactly. That was the top priority. That's what mattered most to Mary at that moment when the angel of the Lord came to her and was like, hey, so we got this amazing plan, and it directly involves you. What mattered most in Mary's life at that moment set her up to be able to have that, to be able to carry Jesus. And also, we talked about this before too, but to also be misunderstood for the rest of her life. There wasn't a moment after that point where people culturally didn't look at her and be like, yeah, okay. Because we all know how babies are made. And saying you didn't do the thing to make the thing, we don't believe you, Mary. And so you think it's bad nowadays, where they call it having a baby when you're not married, right? Typically people, even still today, will look down on the mom, ironically enough. They don't look down on the dad. They look down on the mom. How could you? You're too young. Do you even know how to raise a child? And then imagine if the mom's like, I don't know what happened. I just woke up and I was pregnant. Really? Right? Nobody would believe you. They wouldn't believe you back then, they wouldn't believe you now. And so Mary decided and agreed with God to have her whole life be completely misunderstood. But she also knew what mattered most. And so the reason why I had these amazing young women come up here is I wanted you guys to get kind of a visual of where Mary was physically at, age-wise, when she had Jesus. She wasn't in her 20s, she wasn't really in her 30s, she was a young woman. And varying between 14 and 18 years old is what I believe. Some people say even younger, and I'm like, yeah, you're weird, I'm not going to listen to you. Right? They're just trying to be controversial and anything like that. So, here's another question. And again, culturally, you kind of have to, you can't look at things in today's context back then and be like, well, that's weird. Okay. Culturally speaking, are any of you ladies ready to be married right now? Like if one of these amazing young men came up and just dropped to his knee and was like, will you marry me? Would you be like, nah. Right? There's some pretty awesome dudes out here, just saying, but you would all say no. Right? So culturally, in our culture today, right, none of you ladies are ready to be married, right? Yes? Please say yes. Okay, right? You're playing with the guys' hearts out there. If any of you are like, yeah, I'm ready, go, yes, okay, hold on, let me, I don't have a ring, but will this do? Right? No, they're not, okay? So culturally, we're in a different spot now, right? Back in those days, they would all be ready, but they would have been trained from a young age to be, hey, you know what, this is what you do, this is how you think, this is how you prepare yourself to be a woman. So we do things differently now. But also, what's going on in each of these lovely ladies' lives? Maybe let's just pick three of you. What's going on in your life right now, in the last week?
College classes.
College classes, okay. Two more. What's going on? It doesn't have to be deep, it doesn't have to be spiritual, just what's going on.
Lots of school.
Lots of school, yep.
Cleaning stuff.
And what?
Cleaning stuff.
Cleaning stuff, okay. What do you like doing in your free time? We'll just pick two of you.
I like to draw.
Like to draw? Okay. Lily? Sorry, I keep staring at you. Something you like to do for fun. There you go. Right? So, Mary was human. I'm sure she probably didn't like skateboarding or that kind of stuff, right? But I'm sure she would have if there was that technology available, right? But she had other stuff going on in her life. She was getting ready to be married. She had kind of that trajectory set for her life. We already asked all these young ladies if they're ready for marriage. They all said no, right? I'm sure all their dads, if they were out there, would be like, yes! They had their guns ready, but... so anyways, all right, thank you, ladies. You can have a seat. Can we give them a round of applause? Okay, so that is what Mary looked like when Jesus was born. We all on the same page? All right, so now we're going to get a look at what Jesus was like in the story that we're going to talk about today. So, bros, can you guys come and stand up here on that white line? If you are 12 years old, how many 12-year-olds do we have? Okay, okay.
I'm like 13 years old.
That's okay, it still counts. I don't know
Yeah,
exactly.
still counts. I'm older.
All right. Look at these robust, smelly dudes. No, I'm kidding. Okay, all right. So, again, in context, I want you guys to kind of get a look at these young men, right? We got Derek, we got Matthias. What's your name again? Jake?
Jonathan.
Jimmy?
He doesn't
Jonathan?
remember.
Oh, Jonathan. Oh, yeah, that's right. You're my son. Okay. And Jackson. Okay? What do you guys notice about these bros? What are some observations? Different heights? You guys want to yell or be like, hey! You're like, no, because I don't want my voice to crack. Okay? Okay, but I want you guys to observe these guys, right? And maybe their height, how big their muscles are, right? Do they have any facial hair?
Not yet.
Not yet, but they will, right? You guys are smart, right?
Sort of.
Yeah. Right.
I can't agree with that.
So, how many of you guys in this group at this moment would feel like, yeah, I could approach these guys and talk to them, right? Most of you? Okay. What's maybe like a topic that you guys are really knowledgeable about or know a lot about? Some of you feel like you could carry on the conversation.
Something other than what I'm not knowledgeable about.
9th grade math.
9th grade math. Okay, so you can talk about math.
I would say math.
Do you guys like any movies or books?
Endgame. Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings? Okay. Do you feel like you could carry on a conversation? How about this? Do you guys feel like you guys could carry on a conversation for like 5 to 10 minutes about Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know what you're talking about, you would be like, and then Gandalf said to Darth Vader, are you my mom? You'd be like, dude, there's so many things wrong with that, that's not even, you don't even know the movie, right? You guys can carry on a conversation about that?
Huh?
What's your favorite character in Lord of the Rings?
Legolas.
Yeah. Derek?
Okay, which one? Hobbit or
Lord of the Rings.
Probably Aragorn.
Huh? Aragorn?
Hobbit's terrible. What's that dwarf's name that's really funny?
Gimli?
Yes, Gimli. He's awesome.
How about you, Jackson?
Aragorn.
Aragorn? Nice, okay.
The Witch King of Aegor.
Oh, we're the Witch King. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to read, with these guys up here, I'm going to read Luke 2:41 through 52, just so you guys kind of get a gist for the story, and then I'm going to have them sit down, okay? So every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. When he was 12 years old, like these strapping young gentlemen up here, they went to the festival according to the customs. After the festival was over, while his parents were returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. But they were unaware of it. Thinking he was in their company, they traveled on for a day. Then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished, and his mother said to him, and we'll pause right there. Krista, will you come on up? So this is fast forward a little bit, right? Mary is now probably around Krista's age, but a little bit older, right? So imagine Krista as like a 26, 27, maybe 28-year-old.
Like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. She's maybe a little taller. No, smarter? I don't know. Definitely not cooler, because that's, yeah. But you're at your coolest peak right now. Okay, so Krista, if you were looking for your son for 3 days, you couldn't find him, and you finally found him, and this is where he's at, right? All right, guys, pay attention. Or should I just call you guys Jesuses? No. Okay.
I don't.
Right? So pretend you're Jesus, okay? And your mom, Krista's your mom now. Okay? AKA Mother Mary, okay? She sees you and she's been looking for you for 3 days. You went all weekend.
It said that they traveled out a day.
Yeah.
And then
So she's been looking for you for 3 days. So I don't know how long you've been hanging out here, but she's been looking for you for 3 days.
Well,
What do you think she's going to say to you?
if they traveled out a day, then it would take a day to get back. So that would be
Okay.
2 days. And if she
Regardless, so she's been looking for you.
5 days.
How do you think she's going to be talking to you? Like, I've been looking for you. Can you just act it out, Krista? Like, if you've been looking for him for 3 days, what's the tone you would have?
I have been looking for you for 3 days. Where have you been?
in Jerusalem.
Okay? And you're going to laugh right here. Okay, so,
I would be sitting down beside her.
Derek,
That's true.
can you answer to your mom? Be like, why were you searching for me? Can you
Why
say
were you
that?
searching for me if you do not know that I
If your name's not Derek, you shouldn't be talking. AKA Jesus. Okay.
Why were you searching for me? Did you want to leave me behind?
Okay, and Matthias, can you say, I was in Dad's house?
I was at his dad's house.
Okay? And then Jonathan, can you say, I love you, Mom?
I love you, Mom.
And then Jackson, can you say, I do respect you, Mom?
You respect your mom.
Are you ready to go? Okay. And here's Mary. Like she's totally stressed out. How many of you guys remember back when Jesus was first born? Remember that king that was like, the wise men came through and he's like, yeah, tell me where Jesus is so I too may go and kill him. I mean, worship him. Worship him. Yeah, worship him. You guys remember that guy?
kill him.
Probably kind of stressful on Mary, right? If somebody wanted to kill your kid, would you be a little stressed out? Just a skosh, right? And then if you had to go to a totally different country where they didn't speak your language, and guess what country they went to? Egypt. Israel, Egypt. Wasn't there some tension there? Moses or slavery or I don't know. Do you guys remember that? Imagine going back to the country where years ago your people were enslaved.
That's
Little stressful, right? And you wait for the king to die so you can come back to your homeland. So, also, let's just add this here. I'm going to need 2 ladies that are about 12. This isn't accurate age-wise, but do we have 2 12-year-old ladies? Lily? You're 11. Yeah, even better. And Zoe? You come on up. Okay. I just want you guys to get a picture of this. So yeah, go ahead. Come on up this way. Just right up there with the bros. Not too close though. They stink and they kind of bite sometimes. Right? Okay. And let's see here. So we've got.
I can't remember.
Okay, we need one more dude up here. Do we have any dudes that are 11? Henry? Can you come on up?
Peyton, I need you to come up here so you can be publicly shamed.
Okay, so Henry, go ahead and go over there. There you go. Okay. So here's what I want you guys to understand, just a little bit of context before we dive into some of this stuff. It wasn't just Jesus at this whole Passover festival thing. So sometimes if you guys hear the story and you think, wow, Mary, for how stressed out you were when you had to go to Egypt and all this stuff, like you just left the Savior. Oh, I just misplaced the Savior of the world. Whoops, right? I thought he was with you, Joe. No, I thought he was with you, Mary. Can you imagine that argument, right? Where is Jesus? Where is he? Is he saving the world already? No, not yet, right? But the family consisted of, we should probably get a Joseph. Paul, can you come on up here? Joseph was a little bit older, but not like, right? Okay. And that's perfect, because Paul's like, his beard's shorter, so. All right, so Joseph, can you go stand over by Mary? Okay. Don't get too close to each other because you guys are mad. You're mad at each other. You guys have been arguing. So these two have been arguing for days about, come on, Jesus? You misplaced Jesus. How do you forget Jesus? Okay? And Joe's blaming Mary, and Mary's like, this guy, right? They probably had some words. Okay? But I'm going to introduce you to the rest of the family. So we've got James, a.k.a. Jackson. So James, why don't you go over by your mom? Right? We've got Joseph Jr. Jonathan, why don't you go over there? A.k.a. Jonathan, right? Joseph Jr., he had a weird walk. He had a limp. He walked like a gangster, right? And then we've got Jude, a.k.a. Matthias, right? Jude, why don't you go on over there? And then we've got Simon, a.k.a. Henry. So you going over there, okay? And then he might have had a couple of sisters. So we got Lily. We'll just, for sake of argument, we'll say Martha. There we go. Okay, Martha, go ahead. Let's go over there. And Zoe, it could be a Hebrew name. I don't know. Maybe? Mara. No, I'm just kidding. We won't do Mara. Okay. Zoe, so you go ahead and go on over there. So go ahead and stand by your family. Okay? So this is Jesus' family. Rough guessing, right? Some scholars believe that this is roughly how big Jesus' family. And Jesus was, I believe, the oldest. So, right? Jesus also didn't like, his growth spurt didn't happen until he was like 13 or 14. So that's why he's a little bit shorter like this. Super smart though, okay? If you know Derek, I feel like this is a good representation of Jesus at this age. Derek can carry on a conversation, like a legitimate, smart conversation with you about a lot of different things, right? I didn't plan this out, Derek, by the way, but you fit a perfect 12-year-old Jesus, just saying, okay? So it's easy to see how maybe if this is just one family unit, they were there with all of their relatives. It was an annual thing. They went there once a year, celebrated Passover, and then went back home. So, yeah, they were having an argument, but it's easy to see how maybe Jesus could get left behind or shut down in the mix, right? You kind of see that? So I wanted to kind of give you guys a visual picture of what that looked like and why Jesus got left behind. So you guys can all go sit down. Thank you. Can you give our contestants a round of applause? Okay. So, again, as you guys sit down, the observations from that passage, they made that trip every single year. How many of you guys have been to Gleanings or any kind of missions trip? Right? Do you guys ever like go on family vacations or anything like that? How many of you? Show your hands. Okay. Do you go back to the same place? Yes. Like, oh yeah, I remember going to that cabin or that place or whatever, right? And as your family grows, maybe you bring some uncles and aunts and some extended family or maybe some friends or whatever from the area. Do you guys ever do that? Have you guys, here's a question. We won't go too far into this, but have any of you guys ever been left behind? Sam, okay. Katie, Alicia, okay, a few of you guys, okay. Right? Where your parents just kind of drove off, they thought you were in the car, and they're like, oh. Have any of you guys been like left behind for a day? No? Micah? Okay. Yep. 2 days? Just one? Okay. You had to forage for food? Okay. So they all left and assumed that Jesus was with them. Right? The whole family, the relatives, everything, they packed up and they left and they just assumed that Jesus was with them because they had done this trip for probably not 12 years because they were in exile for Egypt for some of that time. But probably about 9 to 10 years they've been making this trip with much younger children in tow, right? So the other younger siblings there were not necessarily represented accurately. You start getting younger and younger and younger, and if you've ever, how many of you guys babysit or nanny? Right? You know, the younger the kids get, the more they're like, ah, butterfly. No, I said go to your room. Ah, you got any jelly beans? No, I said go to your room. Right? Oh, I don't feel like it. Go to your room. Right? So it can be difficult when everybody's younger and everything like that. So again, just kind of setting the stage. They were frantically searching or earnestly searching for Jesus. They were like, where is he? They were nervous. They were frustrated. And think back, again, like I was saying, to Herod, to Egypt, all these things that must have been going through, at least Mary's mind, of, oh no. Okay, I know Herod was dead, I know this, okay, he's 12 years old, he's kind of old enough to take care of himself, but I just don't know, I'm kind of stressed out. And would be frustrated. Joseph, I don't know, I like to think that Joseph was probably pretty chill. I mean, taking his wife, in the situation that he did, on a donkey, delivery, like he seems like probably a pretty chill guy, not super stressed out, but with a lot of faith. I imagine him being kind of maybe a little bit more of a quiet, soft-spoken guy that's just like, well, God's good. I trust him. He hasn't let me down yet. But Dad, it looks totally crazy. This is just like, how is God going to pull? Well, he did before, so I think he'll do it again. I don't imagine Joseph as this like, I don't know, right? But Mary might be a little bit more that way. I don't know. We'll find out when we meet him in heaven, right? And then where did they find Jesus? In the temple. What's the equivalent to the temple nowadays? Church. All right. So can you imagine, Derek? Where are you at? Can you stand up? Can you imagine if we had this giant conference here, like lots of just different local churches, maybe from, pretend like you're from Montana, right? Or maybe not quite that far, maybe Washington. Let's say Vancouver, okay? All of his family's up in Vancouver. They walked here for this conference. It was such a big deal, right? Their cars broke down and they're just like, hey, we're all gonna cross over the bridge and go to Valley View for this amazing conference, right? It's gonna be a week long, it's gonna be awesome. There's gonna be food, there's gonna be games, Nerf wars, you name it, right? And worship and prayer and Nerf wars. And it's gonna be great, right? But then they pack up and they're ready to leave, and everybody but Jesus is ready to go. And there's teachers here, there's professors here, there's music artists, there's worship teams here, everything like that. And Jesus decides, right? Derek's still standing there. He decides to hang out and talk with them, to engage with conversations with them, to have a discussion with them. Jackson, do you got something?
I just realized a way to make people better understand this without having to go into like a 25 minute, without having to like go to extra deep length to try to explain it, is you could just say Home Alone, but without the screaming pizza fight the night before.
Yeah, that might do it. Derek, you can have a seat. Thank you. You're a good sport. But Jesus hangs out and kind of stresses him out. But he's having these conversations with these really, do you guys know what theologians are? People that talk about belief in God, right? Or they identify with that or whatever. Professors, maybe teachers, people that teach about God. Maybe it might be easier for you to understand with like maybe a bunch of pastors talking about God. And Jesus was like, can you imagine Derek hanging out after a conference, talking to a bunch of pastors that have been pastoring for 30, 40 years? And he's just hanging out, not right now, Jackson. He's just hanging out and he's talking and asking them questions about what do you think about God? What do you think it means to be a believer? Or back, like with Moses, when he said this, what do you think he meant by that? And they're just like, wow. And hey, remember when Joshua was fighting this one battle over here? Like, what do you think the significance of that was? Or hey, remember back like with the story of Abraham? Why do you think he did that? And can you imagine a young man having those kinds of conversations with these guys and them just being like, wow. And then also the answers that he gave. When they would say this, that, or the other thing, and he would respond, it says they were amazed at his response. And I've been amazed, honestly. I've heard some of your guys' conversations, in youth group, and I'm like, wow, that is really deep. That is really insightful. And then I've heard some where I'm like, wow, I can't believe they're talking about that for this whole time, right? You're like, wow, right? And I have grown friends that I just kind of slow blink when they start talking about stuff. I'm like, wow, I'm not interested in that at all. That's not the case with Jesus here. So they found him at church. He'd been hanging out there talking to a bunch of the local pastors for days. None of these guys thought for a second, like, hey, Jesus, so where's your parents? Right? They were just so engaged in conversation and like, this guy's brilliant, this is amazing. They didn't even think to ask him. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. Right? That's something that kind of has a wow factor, right? If you're talking to somebody and they actually get what you're saying, they can actually talk about Lord of the Rings, they can actually talk about this stuff, and they know what they're talking about. They don't throw in stuff where you're like, you have no idea what you're talking about, man. And sometimes there's little tells, right? If you're talking to somebody about something, like say you're talking to somebody about the guitar, and you're like, yeah, I was playing this chord the other day. Oh, what chord was it? Oh, it was the J chord. You'd be like, haha, you don't know how to play guitar. There is no J chord. Right? Oh, well, I mean, it's new technology and stuff. You'd be like, no, you don't know how to play guitar. There is no J chord. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And it starts over. And there's sharps and the flats, right? But there is no J chord, right? So if somebody starts saying that, you know they don't know what they're talking about. Jesus, he not only had understanding, but he also had answers. He also had, for sake of the musical thing, he also had songs. He also had chord charts. He also had diagrams. He had all this stuff where he knew what he was talking about. So he wasn't just talking to these teachers of the law and the Pharisees and Sadducees about just, well, I think God is good. Really? Okay, let's talk about why you think he's good. And he had this knowledge and understanding that they were just wowed at, of like, holy cow, this guy's 12 years old? Really? And he understands this stuff? So I kind of had a little bit of fun with this next part. Most of you guys, I think everybody here has been interviewed for the student wall, correct? Right? So I just kind of went through, and hopefully this is not heretical, right? Because it's being recorded. No. But for sake of just kind of you guys getting to know maybe 12-year-old Jesus a little bit better, if you don't know him well already, this is what I would imagine him answering the questions that all of you guys had to answer for the wall, right? So, name, Jesus Emmanuel Christ, right? He's 12 years old, school of Papa Joe's Carpentry Academy, right? His favorite food, maybe fish and chips. His favorite hobby, he builds stuff. Favorite thing at youth, talking about my dad. Favorite Bible story, maybe creation. In 2021, this is the one that actually kind of got me. I was like, oh. In 2021, I want to get to know more people and be known by them. I need God's help with, some of you might be like, nothing, right? No. Being patient with my parents. I was just trying to put myself, 12-year-old Jesus, like, he probably needed to be patient with his parents. He needed God's help with that. Because they don't understand. I'm in my Father's house. I'm like, this is where I belong. This is my real home. I gotta be patient with them. I gotta be patient with mom. I gotta be patient with dad. Right? Favorite artist, the Holy Spirit. Favorite colors, probably all of them, right? Because he made all of them, right? So that's just kind of maybe a playful, play on what Jesus' profile would look like if he was on our student wall. I also find it interesting in the dialogue there, so we're kind of getting close to wrapping up here, but when Mary, or we had Krista kind of playing that part, she said, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." And Jesus' response wasn't, what some of you guys might respond, "What?" or "No," or "I was right here." Right? And he's like, "Why were you searching for me? Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" And the thing that I find interesting is when the Bible repeats itself in different spots, either in the same stanza or in different spots, I do think we're supposed to take note of it and to just be like, okay, why is that there? And do you recall back when the angel of the Lord came and said to Mary, "Greetings, blessed one." You know, like, you're amazing. These are some amazing things that's going to happen. Did she fully understand everything that was going on? No. But did she trust God? And what does it say? I'm not counting on you guys to remember this. I'll just tell you. It says that she treasured these things in her heart. These things that she didn't fully understand, that didn't fully make sense. She couldn't quite see the whole plan, but she still treasured them in her heart. 14 to 18-year-old Mary treasured these things in her heart. When she gets older, she's searching for Jesus, doesn't understand. Why are you hanging out here? Why were you gone all weekend? We've been looking for you, and you come at me with, like, didn't you know I'd be in my Father's house? Well, your Father's... Oh, okay. I don't understand that. She treasured these things in her heart. Interesting, right? And there's a couple more spots, and I want you guys to kind of see if you can find those spots where she treasured other things in her heart that didn't make sense. And I think that's pretty cool as we get to know Mary a little bit more, as we get to know Joseph a little bit more, as we get to know 12-year-old Jesus a little bit more. We know that at 12 years old, Jesus was blowing people's minds with his understanding and his answers. And it says at the end there, then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature, meaning, right, and in favor with God and man. So he went back. He had his Home Alone experience, right, and went back with mom and dad and was obedient to them and grew in favor with God and with men. Which is kind of a cool thing. And then the other part that's kind of like, whoa, and then all of a sudden we go from 12-year-old Jesus to where we'll be at next week, kind of touching on, then he, like, the next time we meet Jesus or talk about Jesus in the Bible, he's getting ready for ministry. He's like in his 30s. So this is a rare glimpse into Jesus as a preteen that I think is interesting, and I hope speaks to you guys as far as just like what I want you guys to look like, what I want you guys to be acting like. I'm not asking you guys to be like 30-year-old Jesus. What I want you guys to be pursuing and looking for is look at 12-year-old Jesus. And here's the challenge, right? And I love all of you, so don't think that I'm insulting any of you guys here. Most of you guys aren't even acting like 12-year-old Jesus. And most of you guys here aren't 12. So let that sink in a little bit. Like, I got to understand everything. I got to have all the answers. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to look this way. I got to dress this way. I got to talk this way. You got to hang out at your Father's house, your Heavenly Father's house? You're going to talk about things that have eternal value? Some of you guys spend so much time getting to that, I just got to level up on this video game. That is a waste of time. And then you tell me, some people try to tell me, the Bible's just so boring. You're not reading it. That's why it's boring. You're not reading it right. You're not looking at some of these stories. Some of these stories are just like, whoa. Do you realize, like, most of the stories in the Bible, if you were to turn that into a movie, it'd be rated R? Really? Pretty intense. Don't come at me with, it's boring. Nah. Well, I'm not good at reading. We've got comic books. There's a comic book Bible. Well, it's difficult for... Okay, you know what? If you're going to keep coming up with excuses for why you're not going to do it, right? Then how old are we acting spiritually? I don't want to. Sounds like my son Ezra. He's 3. Working on 4, but that 3 is really hanging on strong, right? So, right, we have spiritual ages that we grow and mature in, and what I want to present to you guys is my expectation for you guys, for our group and everything like that. Is, man, if more people could even act like 12-year-old Jesus, we would have a very different society. We'd have a very different world. We'd have a very different everything. Because Jesus was confident, he was respectful, but he was also already about his Father's business. And each of you guys can do that. I'm not saying that none of you guys are 12-year-old Jesus. I'm saying some of you guys are. Some of you guys are even more advanced in years, right, with that. Some of you guys have grown up in the church, so you know a lot about God, but you're still trying to figure out what he wants you to do. And the other challenge I want to throw out there too is don't waste your time, because you don't know how much you have. So don't intentionally choose things that are going to distract you or pull your attention away from those temple moments where sit down and talk to somebody that's older than you about God. Ask them questions. That's what we're here for as leaders. Ask us spiritual questions. Hey, when I was praying the other day, I felt like God was telling me this, but what do you think? Is that even biblical? Let me look that up. Let's figure that out. And sometimes it's going to be conversations like, hey man, I was reading this book the other day and this chapter was just really amazing. And it's got this parallel, and then it wasn't even written by a Christian author, but they're reminded of this story in the Bible, and it's kind of cool. Go for it. And yes, there's going to be some conversations of, hey, you want to see my new trucks? Oh, I can do this new trick. Right? I was playing this video game, and it was like really sick, and I got done with it, and I was like, wow, I want another one, right? And some of you guys are like, I don't even talk like that. Well, right? Those kind of conversations are fine too. I'm not saying every conversation has to be, I was reading my thesaurus the other day, and I was reminded that, before I went to bed, I was reading Webster's Dictionary, because that's what I do for light reading. And I got to this one word where I was like, wow, that is a lot of weird letters, and I don't even know how to say that. Would you like to try to say it? I'll sound it out for you. No, that's not. I'm not saying you guys need to have those kinds of conversations. But what I am saying is talk about God, talk about the questions that you have, talk about those things that maybe keep you up at night. Like, what does this mean? To follow after Jesus, to trust God with everything I have, like, what does that even look like? What about this? What about that? What about this problem? What about this struggle? Talk to them about it, and talk to other people about it. If you only talk to, here's the thing I'll end with, right? If you guys only talk to, which a lot of you guys have been, even during this discussion, right? I still love you, but I have eyes and all the lights are on, so I can tell when you're like, and I wasn't telling a joke, so. It's cool if you guys talk to each other about life, about everything else. But just like working out, you are not going to get stronger if you only work out with somebody that's just as strong as you. When I was running, and I want to get back into it because hallelujah, my foot's healed up. You're not going to run faster if you only run with people that run just as fast as you. There's a reason why we go to school and the professors are old, right? Older than us, right? They're older than us. They've been through more life. They've studied more things. They've gone to school. They've got that piece of paper that says, nee, 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 I know more than you. Right? And you're like, oh, hurtful. Right? I know how to have fun and you don't. No, I'm just kidding. Right? Maybe not kidding. But you're not going to get stronger. You're not going to get smarter. You're not going to get better if you just hang out with people your own age, if you just talk about this stuff with people your own age. You got to look ahead and be like, hey, you know what? I see the wisdom that you have. I see the relationship with God that you have. I see the fruit in your life. I want that. How did you get that? How did you get to the spot where you trust God like that? How did you get to the spot where you worship like that? How did you get to the spot where you're comfortable having a conversation with somebody that you don't even know? How do you do that? That's how you're going to get stronger. That's how you're going to get bolder. And you're going to encourage each other by, right? If Peyton and Jackson are having a conversation or whatever, and they're like, yeah, man, no, you should do it. No, I'm scared. No, you should do it. Bro, you totally got this. Do it. That's what that's for. But if Jackson's like, man, I don't know even where to start, who's he going to talk to? Probably somebody older if he actually wants to know how to do it. Right? So is that making sense? We all on the same page? I want to give you guys a little bit of a heads up, really the next couple of weeks. I'm praying about when to drop the really heavy one. I don't want to kind of go from 12-year-old Jesus to crucifixion, but we'll see. The crucifixion talk, though, when I talk about that, it is emotional for me. It is graphic in what I want you guys to wrestle with and understand and get a picture for. Some of you guys were around the first time I did it. Most of you guys were not. But I do want to just give you guys a little bit of a heads up of, I don't want to candy coat it, sugar coat it, go light with, oh, and Jesus was hanging up on the cross and was like, right? No. You're gonna get a pretty brutal picture of what Jesus actually went through, and even as intense as I can describe it, as heartfelt as I can deliver it, I will still fall short. Right? I think probably most of us in here would vomit uncontrollably if we saw Jesus in the condition that he was in as he was going to the cross. At the very least, we'd be weeping, especially if we had seen him before. So I want us to kind of get ready for that spot because, again, these are things that sometimes we just kind of skim over. We totally skip past. We're like, and Jesus was born, and then he did his first miracle at a wedding. We just totally skip past this 12-year-old Jesus. And for you guys, that's the thing where I'm like, hey. This is going to benefit you guys. This is going to bless you guys. It blesses me, too, to realize that, Jesus was 12 years old at one time. His voice probably cracked. He was probably nervous in large crowds for a little bit, right? But he figured out who he was. He knew why he was here, what he was about, where he belonged. He belonged in his Father's house, talking about his dad, talking about this amazing stuff. But man, then when he was crucified and resurrected, that crucifixion, sometimes we don't like talking about it because I think for a lot of different reasons. One, we don't like to see the price for our sin. Right? How many of you guys have looked at something on the other side of this, right? Where you're like, man, I really want that, but it is so expensive. So expensive. It's like a couple $1,000. Or you guys see maybe your dream car. How many of you guys are getting ready to drive and you're like, man, I know I can probably only afford the $800 beater car that's maybe going to start, but it would be so cool if I got that $60,000, you fill in the blank, right? Probably not going to happen. But we start getting uncomfortable when we start looking at the price tag and what it's going to take to get that. Same thing when we look at our sin and we look at like what it cost Jesus. I guess here, I'm just going to tell on myself here too. I want you guys to be uncomfortable. I want you guys to be disturbed when we talk about that. If you guys aren't like, then I'm not describing it well enough. Okay? So, if it's next week or the week after that, it's not going to be a feel-good message. I still want you guys here for it. I still want you guys to hear it and understand it because I want you guys to know what Jesus went through for you. And the resurrection is fantastic and awesome. And it gives us freedom and all this stuff. It gives us forgiveness of sins. It gives us the ability to live in victory to where you don't have to struggle the rest of your life with this stuff. You can actually be like, no, I gave that to Jesus and he's helping me walk it out. He said, don't do this. I can't do that on my own, but I'm trusting him. He's going to do that. That came at a cost. There's a big price for that. And it wasn't just and that's the other thing too, like a lot of people like to wear that cross necklace and stuff. Like, do you realize what that symbolizes? You don't know. You're walking around in a string bikini or flaunting this or acting like some gangster thug or whatever, and you got a cross around your neck. You have no idea what that represents. Absolutely no idea. That is a symbol of torture. That is a symbol of death. That is a symbol of what Jesus paid the price so that I can be forgiven, so that I can live free. That's not just some cute piece of jewelry. But we've turned that into something where it doesn't really mean anything anymore, unfortunately. He says, oh, cool, cross necklace. You Christian, maybe? No. They're just wearing it because it looks cool. Or maybe because you'll buy their stuff then. That's what my friend Daniel will do. He'll say something really sharp. Right? So my goal in the next week is to make you guys uncomfortable. So I don't want anybody to be misunderstood or like, wow, that was really harsh, Josh, or wow, that was really, you really went for it. Like, I want that. But I want you guys to understand what Jesus went through so that when we talk about his resurrection and when I give you guys the opportunity to start that relationship with Jesus, because maybe some of you guys are like, you think you have a relationship with Jesus, but you really don't, and the next couple weeks will kind of shine a light on, no, I want a relationship with Jesus. I recognize what he did, what's been done, and what he wants to do in my life, and I want to be a part of that moving forward. So we're going to set it up in a way that you'll have that opportunity, and then to encourage you guys too, kind of talking even further past that, and then and then we'll be done. Is some of you guys have talked to me about baptism. I know my sons have talked to me about it. I think, where's beautiful Lily? There, hiding behind Jack, okay. And I think there was a couple more, but if you guys are curious about baptism, especially after we go through the Jesus series, we're going to be doing that hopefully in April. And I want it to be a party. Baptisms are one of those things where I don't think I've ever been to a baptism or baptized somebody without having even just a little tear. Just because it's really powerful. It's symbolic and a real privilege to be a part of. If you see somebody be baptized or if you get to baptize somebody. I had the enormous privilege of baptizing Claire last year in the ocean. Kind of a cool story with that. Like, we get out there and getting ready to baptize her and it just starts pouring down. Right, I think it was after the baptism, yeah. So we dunk her, pour her up, everybody's singing, we're singing worship songs, like, yeah! And then it just starts pouring down rain. We're just like, this is amazing, right? So we won't necessarily do it in the ocean, but we're working on kind of finding a spot to where if you're interested in baptism, really the two things we're going to ask of you for that is that you talk to your parents, because I'm not going to baptize you without your parents' permission. So I won't even consider that if you haven't talked to your parents and I haven't talked to them and all that kind of stuff. But then also we want to have kind of a pre-meeting with you beforehand to where if that's something you're interested in, we want to really have a personal conversation with you of, do you understand what this is, what this means, the significance of this, and be able to hear from you. You can ask questions, all that kind of stuff. But as a leadership team, we want to make ourselves available to you guys for that. So that'll be something separate from youth group, separate from Frontline. It'll be a party for us where we can kind of talk through that and so you understand what you're doing. I'm not interested in dunking somebody underwater and they don't even know why. Right? That's weird. It's really weird. So, does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, I got one thumbs up. Okay. All right, so that's a wrap, Danny. If you want to stop recording me, that would be awesome. Bye, Nancy. Thank you.